इंडियन अचीवर्स के मेरे सभी साथियों को एक बार फिर बहुत प्यार भरा नमस्कार और आप सभी का स्वागत है हमारे कार्यक्रम इंडियन अचीवर्स में। दोस्तों, पिछले काफी समय से हमारे बहुत से दर्शक हमसे ये गुजारिश करते रहे कि भाई कुछ इमिग्रेशन के ऊपर, कुछ वीजास को लेकर हमारे मन में कुछ सवाल हैं जिनके हम जवाब चाहते हैं, हमें कुछ सटीक जानकारी चाहिए। तो हम इस कोशिश में थे कि हम इसके ऊपर एक कार्यक्रम बनाएं, क्योंकि भारत से बहुत से लोग अमेरिका आकर बसने का सपना देखते हैं। तो उसी कड़ी में आज हम अपने साथ एक जाने माने इमिग्रेशन लॉयर को लाए हैं, जो अमेरिका के वर्जीनिया राज्य में रहते हैं और उनकी काफ़ी बड़ी लॉ फर्म है। और जी हाँ, हम बात कर रहे हैं जेनेथा कंचरला की, जिनकी अपनी लॉ फर्म है और जो पिछले लगभग 1.5 दशक से इस क्षेत्र में कार्यरत हैं। और उसके अलावा जैसे हम लोगों से लोग क्वेरी करते हैं कि भाई बिजनेस वीज़ा हो गया, फैमिली वीज़ा हो गया या डिपेंडेंट वीज़ा हो गया, तो इन सब को लेकर जिनेथा जी एक स्पेशलाइज्ड लॉयर हैं। तो हमने सोचा कि आज इन्हीं से इसके बारे में बातचीत करते हैं। जिनेता जी, आपका बहुत बहुत स्वागत है हमारे इस कार्यक्रम इंडियन अचीवर्स में। मैं और हमारे साथी विजय गौड़ जी आज आपसे कुछ ऐसे ही सवाल करेंगे जिनको लेकर हमें लगता है कि हमारे दर्शकों का काफी जो है जानकारी प्राप्त करेंगे। तो आपका बहुत बहुत स्वागत है हमारे कार्यक्रम।
नमस्कार।
तो मैं आपसे चाहूंगा कि आप संक्षेप में अपने बारे में थोड़ा सा बताएं, इससे पहले कि हम अपने सवालों को शुरू करें।
Yeah, I live in Virginia and I have been practicing immigration law for the past 14 years. And, I mostly deal with business immigration and I also deal with family immigration. So, business immigration is like, we represent corporations who try to bring people from all over the world, on the specialty occupations or intra-company transfers to the United States, and family immigration, as sponsoring the spouse or parents or kids, on different levels. So, and I have been, I myself am an immigrant to this country. So, I developed interest, because I went through the immigration process and I started my practice with family law in corporations, trust and estates, all of those things like partnership agreements and all. But eventually, I ended up, liking immigration more. So, that's how I ventured into immigration and then, completely, into the immigration law and practicing it from the past 14 years.
तो जनेता जी, मैं भी आपकी तरह एक इमिग्रेंट हूँ और 18 साल पहले यहाँ आया था। मुझे पता है कि ये एक बहुत बड़ा डिसीजन होता है एक देश से दूसरे देश में जाने का। आप हमें बताएंगे कि किस तरह की कॉमन प्रॉब्लम्स फेस करते हैं इमिग्रेंट्स यहाँ आके, और आपके पास इस तरह के केसेस आते रहते होंगे, क्या प्रिकॉशंस उन्हें लेनी चाहिए भारत में यहाँ आने से पहले?
Yeah, good question, Vijayji. So there are two different things here. When we say immigration, so there are two different kinds of visas. One is immigrant and one is non-immigrant. When you say immigrant, I mean people coming here on, immigrant visas, like, green cards itself, like, when the family sponsor or, when they kind of, go through the process outside the consulate. And then when they come here as a non-immigrant, like, on different visas like L or H or, B or, all different like H4, L2s, these are all non-immigrant visas. So, of course, they can have immigrant intent later. So, I'll start with the immigrant process. Like, when a citizen wants to sponsor the spouse or parents or, kids, those who are outside the United States, they usually do in a two-step process, like, sponsoring them, the first step, and then once it is approved, the case goes to the National Visa Center and the consulate. So when you are coming on an immigrant visa, here, they are completely immigrating into the United States for the first time. So they had to make sure that, usually if, the kids are here sponsoring the parents, they already know how the conditions are here because they might have visited several times to the United States, on a temporary pleasure visas like B2 visas. So they had to make sure, because mostly, the cultural differences, and if they are a little bit older who cannot speak English, the language barriers, and also for the older folks, having that a kind of access to the medical services, and sometimes the transportation as well. Because let's say, for example, if we are talking about the India and then immigrating into the United States, people are more comfortable there. There are different modes of transportation where they can just go by themselves, and then because they are very familiar with the local language and all. But here, once they come, they had to dependent on somebody, like either whether it is a daughter or son or spouse. So they have to make sure that they adapt to the new country, the conditions, and then the kind of things that they how they function here. They have to understand. And most frequently, especially when we do immigration to parents, the main issue that I always hear from the clients are, kids want the parents to stay with them. Parents say yes, initially, and then after a while they get bored, because they might be missing friends back home, or the kind of society, or the kind of the regular socialization that they usually do in their home country, they might be missing. And at the older age, coming back here, making new friends, of course they do have family, but beside that, if the family is busy going to work and all, parents also should keep them busy themselves. I mean, they have to make new friends of their age, and socialization and all. I mean, most of the time we hear complaints about, they are more used to having those kind of comforts back home, like somebody helping them in regular groceries or regular chores daily. So those are the things often we hear from them, asking, hey, can we go back, stay for 1 or 2 years and come back, though we have a green card? How does it work? Because I mean, usually they go do their work, like whether it is going to a pension office or bank, or doing simple things that they are used to, how they used to do back home. So they will be missing that. So we hear most of the time, how can we go back, stay a couple of years, and then again come back, and then we don't want to give up the green card. So these are the issues that we hear mostly.
तो जिनीता जी, अगर अगर हम बात करें डिफरेंट काइंड ऑफ वीजास की या ग्रीन कार्ड की, तो उसके लिए जो इसको चाहते हैं उनके लिए क्या क्वालिफिकेशन होनी चाहिए और उसके लिए क्या प्रोसीजर है, थोड़ा इसको प्रिसाइजली बताएंगे आप?
So, in order to get a green card, there are two ways to get it. One is through employment, and one is through, family based, which is like, getting married to a US citizen or a green card holder. And then, yeah, if US citizen, sponsoring parents and the kids, that is one way. That's called family based immigration. So, green card. And then employment based green card, employer needs to sponsor. Usually for the employment based green cards, what happens is there are different categories, EB1, EB2, and EB3. And then based on the per country quota limitations, there are yearly numbers set out for each category. And it all depends upon the employer requirements, in which category they can get into. Like, though a person have a PhD from back home, if the employer only have the position availability for a master's plus 2 years, or a bachelor's plus 5 years, or bachelor's plus 2 years, they fit into certain category. So it doesn't depend upon the person's qualifications. It depends upon the company qualifications, what their requirements are. So as I said, if the person has a PhD, though the company requirements are only a master's plus 2 years or a bachelor's plus 5 years, they kind of fall into EB2 category. So it all depends upon the requirements that the employer has, the company has. So
जैसे आपने अभी बताया E1, E2, E3, थोड़ा थोड़ा इसके बारे में बताएंगे?
Yeah, EB1 is, I mean, like a little bit, extraordinary ability, those who have, like, people, do have PhDs, and then sometimes a national interest waiver, that falls into the first category. So, which is called EB1. And, to the requirements to meet those are, of higher qualifications, and also, they had to have a national or international, acclaim, or, awards, or those kind of things. And for EB2, like, if people have a bachelor's degree, and then a 4-year bachelor's degree and 5 years of experience, then they can fall into EB2, or a master's plus two, also qualifies into EB2, which is a next category. And then the EB3 category, which is like, bachelor's plus, 1 or 2, years of experience. So these are, three different categories. As I said, based on the employer requirements, the second and third category is defined, like, and the EB1 is like, having those kind of national or international acclaim, will fit into that EB1 category.
तो चलेता जी, जो ये फैमिली बेस्ड आपने बताया जो सिस्टम है, ये कैसे काम करता है? प्रॉब्लम ये है इसमें कि भारत में जो परिवार की या फैमिली की डेफिनेशन है वो एंटायरली डिफरेंट है यूएस की फैमिली का जो डेफिनेशन है। भारत में एक आदमी के परिवार में बहुत सारे लोग एक दूसरे से डिपेंडेंट हैं, या वो जुड़े हैं, या वो अनडिवाइडेड हिंदू फैमिली जैसी भी चीज़ है। तो पहली बात तो इस प्रोसेस में यूएस इमिग्रेशन फैमिली किसे मानता है? क्या एज की कंडीशंस हैं कि इससे बड़ा होगा तो वो फैमिली का मेंबर ट्रीट नहीं किया जाएगा? इस बारे में थोड़ा हमें बताइए।
There are no age restrictions, but however, when they say family, it's defined as, the close, the blood relation. That's what they mean. I'll give you one example. Like, if a person is a US citizen and wants to sponsor under the family category, he or she can sponsor parents, biological parents, and spouse they can sponsor, and biological kids or adopted kids based on, so, or stepchildren. So, these come under, the familial relation. Of course, they don't have any age restrictions, but however, as I said, you cannot, a citizen cannot sponsor his or her uncle and aunt. So, as I said, it's the very first family, and then having that kind of blood
तो
relation. That's what.
जनता जी, इसमें एक सवाल ये है, आपने कहा कोई एज रिस्ट्रिक्शन नहीं है। एक यूएस सिटीजन किसी को स्पॉन्सर करता है, मान लो अपने भाई को या बहन को या जिसको भी, और उसके जो बच्चे हैं उनके ऊपर एज रिस्ट्रिक्शंस हो जाती है। वो कहते हैं कि ये 18-21 साल से ऊपर हो गया, और उसको तो उस बारे में थोड़ा बताइए।
Okay. So when, as you said, a citizen wants to sponsor, the brothers or sisters family, because per year, there is certain number of immigrant visas that they are allowed per country, quota limitations. So when we take, when it comes to India, if a person is a United States citizen and wants to sponsor the brother or sister and their entire family, it almost takes full 15 years for them to land in the United States. And also, let's say if the brother's family they are sponsoring when the kids are 2 or 3 year old, that should be fine. But when, especially for kids, if they are over 21, then they become under a different category. They might not include them as dependents. So after 21. So if they are below 21, as per the CSPA Act, Child Status Protection Act, their age would be protected or logged in when the immigrant petition is filed. So, but however, if the kids, when I said there are no age restrictions, it's for the direct sponsors. Like, if a citizen wants to sponsor the brother, so, he or she can be any age and then they can sponsor. But however, when it comes to the brother kids, yes, there is a age restriction. If they are, older than 21, they cannot, and they have to have their own individual application. Maybe the parents, once they immigrate into the United States, then they can put up a petition. But however, if they are below 21 and then the immigrant petition is filed when they are 10, 15, or whatever under 21, then under the CSP Act, it gets locked. But however, CSP Act is a bit complicated, they had to calculate, how many years the immigrant petition is pending.
जेनिता जी,
अगर वो 21 से ऊपर हो जाता है उसका कोई बच्चा, तो उसके लिए क्या मतलब क्या क्या कहाँ क्या करेगा वो फिर? वो वहाँ पे उसको नहीं आने देंगे और वो दोबारा से फाइल करे अपना पिटीशन या क्या करे वो?
Yeah, once they are 21, they won't be able to, as I said, not dependent in, inclusive in that dependent family petition. So they had to get on their own. So usually what we recommend is, let's say if a person is sponsoring the brother's family, if the kids are already, 18 or 19, we usually recommend not to include in the immigrant petition. The reason is if the child wants to come by himself or herself to the United States, whether it is on study purpose on F visa or whether it is a work visa on H1B or L1, if they want to come, the immigrant petition should not be holding them back. Of course, if they want to come on H1B and L1, having an immigrant petition wouldn't hurt because H1 and L1 can have a dual intent. But of course, if they want to come here and study on F1, they won't be able to get the successful visa F stamping at the consulate. The reason is they had to make sure they should mention in the DS 160 form that there is, they are derivative beneficiaries of the immigrant petition. So it depends upon the age. So, based on each individual age, the lawyer recommends, whether to include or not to include.
जेनिता जी, अभी यहाँ पर लाखों इंडियंस जॉब कर रहे हैं और अभी रिसेंटली काफी जॉब वालों की H1 जो है उनकी जॉब चली गई है, तो अब उनको क्या करना चाहिए? व्हाट इज द रेमेडी फॉर दैट?
Yeah, I mean, there is a memo, when they get laid off, at least if the H1B is valid, usually when companies lay off, they kind of give them the severance package and then, let them know that we are keeping your H1B active for the next 60 days. So within 60 days time frame, if they get a job, if somebody else is willing to sponsor them, that would be good. But if it is more than 60 days, we highly recommend not to stay inside the country and accumulate that kind of unlawful status inside the country. And if it is within 60 days, yes, definitely they will move on. And recently, USCIS also, got out a memo stating that if a person has an I-1 approved I-140, then they would be eligible for EAD based on certain circumstances. If they got laid off, like if they stayed in the country for a longer time frame, and if the kids are like into the higher education and stuff like that in the high school and stuff, so they can apply for EAD. But however, that's not a permanent fix. It's a temporary one because once they start using it again, eventually they have to get on to the H1B. In order for that one, they had to travel outside and come inside the country. Most likely, we recommend that if they can get a job within the 60-day time frame, they are good. But if not, leaving the country and then trying for the job from outside, staying outside the United States again, coming back onto the H1B.
तो रेखा जी, अभी कुछ चेंजेस इमिग्रेशन लॉज में मैंने सुना कि इस बाइडेन सरकार ने प्रपोज की हैं या की हैं। जैसे मैं अभी कुछ पिछले दिनों पढ़ रहा था कि जो H1B के लोगों को होम कंट्री में या बाहर कंट्री से बाहर जाके स्टैंपिंग करवाना होता था, वो रिस्ट्रिक्शंस भी उनके ऊपर से उठा ली गई है और वो अब यहाँ यही कर सकते हैं। तो इसके बारे में थोड़ा बताइए।
Yeah. I mean, 15, 16 years ago, not even 15, maybe, 20 years ago, we used to have stamping. People used to get stamping inside the United States. So they had that facility before even traveling. They used to get the stamping, so that way their traveling would be very smooth. That they can, the purpose that they are going back home, they can spend that kind of time with the family, whether it is relatives or parents or siblings. And that has been taken away after 9/11. And then now, more scrutinies, and also they have to go, appear for the stamping at the consulate. And after the pandemic, because of the staff, or whatever of the COVID, long wait times, especially whether it is a non-immigrant visa or the immigrant visa. So long wait times, and even for those who want to go for stampings, they might not be able to get the time frames that they want. And we are hearing from clients, especially when they want to come here on visitors visa, the almost they have a wait time for 6-7 months or even plus, based on their. But of course, they are considering some of the situations are as emergencies, like if there is a family member, a child who is going through medical situations, or a death in the family, that they had to come back. In those situations, they are honoring. But other than that, if they just want to come for pleasure, they had wait times. So what they are trying to do is, again, they want to reintroduce the stamping inside the country, which they are still working on. It's not finalized yet, but most likely we are expecting it to happen by end of this year. So which will be a very good news for a lot of people. At least beforehand, if they have a visa, they can travel happily. So that's one thing. They don't have to wait long time frames. They can avoid those 221 Gs, because inside the country, by staying, working at the same time, and then they can get their visa processed, which is a lot more flexible and a happy news for all of them.
So, Jinita, in the last, let me ask you, uh, there are many proposed, is there any proposed or pending immigration reforms bill or policies that might impact the immigrant community?
I mean, there have been a lot, like, the reforms that, people want them to be passed by both houses. But, those are long pending. And then, I think for Senator, I know for both the houses, immigration is not priority right now, because, many times they have been passed by only one house, and then, waiting for the other house to pass. You can see a lot of disappointment on those lines. But however, they should consider these as priorities, because a lot of people are at least losing the kind of hope. Uh, you know, this country is a land of opportunities. You and me, and like a lot of other people do, who settle down here from from 5-6 decades. They are contributing towards the economy. And, they should ease a little bit on these immigration rules. But there are several pending bills, without seeing any light of the day, so they are still pending.
So, before ending this program, Jinita ji, would you like to convey some message for the aspiring immigrants from India?
Yeah, especially, whether it is immigrants or non-immigrants, like coming on visas,
Yes, yes.
make sure, they do their, due diligence of the, whatever they are coming for. Like, let's say if it is immigration, what are the things that they have to expect, how they can wrap up their, home country business, or, how they had to deal with, after coming here, what they are going to do. And then don't fall for the pitfalls, like somebody telling you that hey, I can do this in 1 or 2 years instead of 10 years. Don't fall for those promises.
Mhm.
Do your homework properly, and then make sure those are true promises and actually actual opportunities. And even same on the non-immigrants as well. Like if somebody is promising you, like I can sponsor you a H1B, you have a job opportunity available, make sure that you do your homework, have those kind of written communications from the employer. And then making sure that you have the job opportunities readily available, because we hear a lot of times that people are going through after coming here, whatever they were promised, they were not having those kind of jobs, employer is not paying, and then, they are asking them to leave. So making sure, you also do your due diligence in making inquiring from your friends, or, doing your online research, how the employer is, whether they have any bad remarks. If you know anybody from the same company, checking with them. So it definitely helps you. So, do your due diligence. That's what I would always recommend.
सिर्फ एक चीज और जनिता जी, एक छोटी सी चीज ये है कि जितने ये कंसल्टेंट बैठे हुए हैं या जो गाइडेंस करते हैं, उनके ऊपर कितना भरोसा करना चाहिए, क्योंकि वो काफी कुछ एश्योरेंसेस देते हैं लेकिन वो निकलता नहीं है उसमें से कुछ, और लोग उनके चपेट में आ जाते हैं.
Yeah, when you talk about consultancies, especially in India, I think I believe you are talking about consultancies, those who are helping on F1s and stuff like that. So I mean these days they have a lot of friends, whether they are engineering students, or any students, or if they are working, they have a lot of friends, unlike 20, 30 years ago. So they can at least go ahead and check with their friends. Maybe if they don't have direct access, checking with their US friends, how the company is, whether it's a good one or bad one, how their employees are, getting some kind of talk with the existing employees. So if you do your homework, so if you are doing your homework, I mean there will be a way to get out, and a lot of online resources are these days, checking the reviews for at least the company wise, somebody or something will be online, writing. I mean you don't have to believe it all the time, that is 100% true, but at least check with your friends, making sure that you are inquiring on those lines,
ओके,
not blindly believing it.
ठीक है. मैं जिंदा जी बहुत ही बढ़िया रहा, लेकिन अभी ये फील्ड इतनी बड़ी है कि इसके ऊपर अगर हम और भी आगे एपिसोड बनाते रहें तो शायद मुझे लगता है कि हमारे दर्शकों को और भी ज्यादा अच्छी जानकारी मिलेगी. अभी हम उम्मीद करेंगे कि आपसे और आपकी कंपनी के दूसरे जो लॉयर्स हैं उनसे भी बातचीत करें और कुछ और सवालों को लेकर आए. और मैं अपने दर्शकों से गुजारिश करूंगा कि हमारे इस कार्यक्रम को देखें, लाइक करें और सब्सक्राइब भी करें और शेयर भी करें, और हो सके तो कमेंट भी करें. आपका हमारे कार्यक्रम में आने के लिए बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद. थैंक यू वेरी मच.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity.
थैंक यू.